Wakanda Forever apparently got woke and went broke. But probably not, or maybe. I honestly can't tell. But the Washington Post has written, is Wakanda Forever too woke for Marvel's own good? Okay, well, it depends on what you mean by woke, but I will say this. For those of you that have not seen this movie and want to, there's going to be spoilers in this segment because, let me just stress, it has to be one of the most racist movies I have ever seen. And, what I love about it is that they try so hard to make what they claim to be diverse and worldly content. They end up creating the paramount of racial stereotypes. But my friends, I must stress, I am actually convinced that in the production of Wakanda Forever was the intent to be explicitly racist towards Mexicans. Okay, Mexicans a nationality, but mestizos, how about that? Or indigenous Central Americans, Mayans, Aztec, whatever. And I do think there are several racist things about Wakanda, and we saw this in the first movie. But what's funny to see is I can't tell if they're trying to. It's funny, when we were leaving the movie theater, I'm going to save the explanation for the extremely racist component. But for those of you that didn't see the movie and don't care, you wait till you hear this. I'm also willing to bet there are a lot of people who watched the movie and didn't really make the connection of the overtly and insanely racist component of this movie. But I love it. I love it because, and I mean that in like the circumstance, not the movie itself. I think the racism was just disgusting. But, I'm not one to be like, ban the movie because they're racist. I just laugh at either they're trying really, really hard to be woke. So they're creating these characters that are racist stereotypes, whatever. And then the left loves it, or they're intentionally insulting black people and Mexican people and making the woke people pay for it. So here's what I end up seeing. I see this post on the story from the Washington Post from a few days ago. Is Wakanda Forever too woke for Marvel's own good? Oh boy, I really wanted to talk about this one, but I had to wait a little bit because I'm going to have spoilers in this. Take a look at this from the Hollywood Reporter. Black Panther Wakanda Forever commands huge $181 million U.S. opening, $331 million globally. The Marvel Studios sequel hunted down the biggest November launch of all time at the domestic box office. Elsewhere, Steven Spielberg's Oscar contender, The Fabelmans, opened to strong numbers in New York and L.A. Well, just there, I guess. So what do you see? With the first Black Panther movie, I thought it was actually very based. A lot of people said it was woke. And you know what I don't like? It's like predictable. So the Disney and Marvel or whatever, they come out and they say Black Panther is going to be, this movie based in Wakanda. Then woke activists say it's so diverse. And then conservatives are like, the cast is nearly all black. It's not diverse. It's still racially homogenous. And then you end up seeing a bunch of these conservative personalities say things like, we get it. The movie hates white people. The movie is woke. The movie hates men. And I'm like, what? I didn't get any of that from the first Black Panther or the second one. I actually thought the first one made some interesting points about these ideologies of closed border ethnic homogeneity versus expansionist ethnic supremacy. I thought the first Black Panther was great. I think the story in Wakanda Forever is also very good, but there is just like extremely racist components to the story. If you were to strip those racist components out, I thought it was actually interesting. So, again, forgive me for those that just want me to jump to the part that was overtly racist. I don't want to outright spoil it. I want to make sure people have warning. So in about 30 seconds to a minute, I will explain the worst part of the movie. That being said, the character of Namor, he's not Namor anymore, he's Namor. I thought he was great, except for the racism. But I thought the character was a C-. They could have done a better job with explaining his motivations instead of just making him this like evil guy for no reason. But in terms of his character, his abilities, and the weirdness of it, I loved it. So Namor, there's spoilers to explain why, but in the movie, he's got wings on his feet. And that's actually something Namor in the comics actually had. So when he's fighting out of water, the flight was really cool. He's like darting back and forth super fast. And I thought it was awesome. He's a very powerful character, hidden beneath the depths, hiding from the world. And I really, really enjoyed the invasion scene. Now, that's not a spoiler, because that's actually in the trailer. You see the what are they called? Like Talakanil or whatever, the character, they're water people. You actually see them walking into Wakanda in a fight. So not a spoiler there. But now let me get into the big spoiler and then talk about why they think the movie is too woke when in fact it's not. First, let me say, in the first Black Panther, T'Challa, the Black Panther himself, was, he believed in closed borders, Wakanda first policy, and he outright said, if you open the borders up, the people will bring their problems here. It may have been him or someone else. But he was a patriarchal ruler. He was a monarch who solidifies his position in ritual combat with only the approved bloodlines. Really incredible stuff, not woke. We're supposed to celebrate a nation where its ruler is chosen by one of a set number of bloodlines who battle, and it can only be men? Okay. And of course, there's a queen and there's a princess, but the men fight to be king. So it's a patriarchal monarchy with ritual combat to decide which family line rules, and it's always the Black Panther, I guess. But he depowers himself or something, I guess. And he's in Wakanda first, closed borders. A lot of people were like, it's really interesting to have him be the hero. Sounds very MAGA. The villain, Killmonger, wanted to arm black people all around the world with vibranium weapons so that they could take over their countries and be racial supremacists. Interesting premise. I genuinely enjoyed it. I don't think it was overtly racist. I think it was politically like Killmonger, the bad guy, was. But T'Challa was like, no, we don't want to do that. That's bad. I bring you now to Wakanda Forever. And the racist component. I've warned you, there are spoilers. The villain of the movie is Kukulkan, is what M'Baka calls him. It's like Ka-uk-ulkan. Or whatever. It depends on, whoever's saying it properly. I don't know. Ka-uk-ulkan or Kukulkan. And it means, it's like the feathered serpent god. And he goes, but my enemies call me Namor. And it's because when he was a small child, when his mom was pregnant with him, they were dying from disease. And so this shaman finds this vibranium enriched plant, much like the Wakandans found that gave them superpowers. They make a tea, they all drank it, and then, oh no, they turn blue and they can't breathe and they get gills. Okay, I guess. So they go live in the water. Lady was pregnant though. So the baby only got a little bit and is born a hybrid mutant. They explicitly say mutant. He's born and he's got wings on his feet, so they call him Kukulkan. They're like, he's a god or whatever. He has the ability to breathe on land. The other guys don't. They need to breathe water. And he can go in water. And they explain that he's able to because of skin diffusion. That's right. His skin absorbs oxygen from the water, meaning that when he's underwater, he breathes just fine. But when he goes out into the air, he can breathe. But also, the water on his skin is providing him with oxygen, making him really fast and really strong. Here's the best part. Wakanda. With their great wall. They have a great wall. Technology. Somehow, one day, for some reason, Kukulkan is able to breach this great nation that believes in closed borders and not sharing their weapons with the world. That's how the movie starts. They go to a UN meeting, and the Queen Ramonda, I think her name is, because the king's dead and T'Challa dies, she's like, do not think we are weak. And they're like, you must share vibranium with the world. And she goes, no. And then they storm out, all like, we're our own country, closed borders, the strongest, most powerful nation in the world. Really, it feels like an allusion to the U.S. in many ways. And then one day, Kukulkan breaches Wakanda. But how? Well, let me ask you this question first. What is, and I'm deeply perturbed by this, a racist slur for an illegal immigrant crossing into these United States? I'm not going to say it, but it has something to do with being wet. And you know what I'm talking about. the trope of these individuals crossing the river, soaking wet, and rising up to breach this great nation, the most technologically advanced or whatever you want to call it, the most powerful nation on the planet, the United States. And that's what Queen Ramona says. I am the queen of the most powerful nation in the world. But one day, a Mexican man crosses their river and enters their country. Now, you may be saying, okay, yeah, but it's Namor, right? It's Namor. He's a water guy. How do they defeat Namor? They must dry his back off. I couldn't believe it when I was watching this. They figure out, they're like, how is he so powerful? It's because his back is wet. Okay, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I'll explain. It's because he's wet himself, and his skin absorbs oxygen out of the water through diffusion while breathing. So he's got seemingly this endless stamina. They're like, he goes in the water, and when he comes out, he's very strong. We need to dry him off. Here's how they end the fight. They trap Namor, I'll explain that in a second, in a ship with evaporators to dry his skin off, because he's a Mexican who's wet, who was able to breach Wakanda by crossing their river. That's literally the movie. And so they're drying him off, and he's going, whoa, what's happening? And so then he tries to break out of the ship. She goes, quick, we must get him to the desert. And they fly him to the desert. I'm not kidding with this. They crash, and then they're fighting, and Shuri is the Black Panther or whatever, because she was able to synthesize this thing, whatever. They're fighting, and he's winning. Namor is winning, despite the fact she was trying to dry him off. And then, seemingly when all is lost, Shuri jumps over this Mexican man, literally from Yucatan, Mexico. I'm sorry, no, I think it's Honduras. I could be wrong. So maybe I'm too much saying Mexican, but he's a conglomeration of Aztec, Mayan, and Central American mythologies. So he's very much like Central American. Let's put it that way. She jumps over him, and he's going, water. And then she presses a button, and jets hit the back of Namor, burning and drying him off. And then he goes, and then he collapses. Okay, I know. She burned him with fire. But the fact that they said we need to dry him off to defeat him, and then ultimately she fires this jet, which shows his back singeing with steam coming off, I was just like, you mean to tell me that the villain is a Central American guy who breaches the most powerful nation in the world by crossing its river, and they're like, how did he do it? How could he have possibly gotten into our country? And then it turns out that his power comes from being wet, and they have to dry him off, and we were all just laughing at the end of this movie. Like, are you kidding? That's what they went for? Whatever, man. A bunch of people were like, no. The Mexican people, the Central Americans, they thought it was really great. It was a great representation. And I'm like, maybe people in Honduras and Nicaragua and Central America, whatever, don't understand the slur and what it means. Specifically, when you see Mexican, Honduran, Central American people crossing the Rio Grande, carrying their stuff, and they rise out of the water dripping wet. They actually have the scene where he comes out of the water and he's soaking wet. These are Central Americans who get past Wakanda's fortification, their great barrier, by going through the river. And his power is taken from him when they dry him off. Okay, dude. There's a couple other really racist things in it. Like when the ship is returning to Wakanda, there's Wakandans, these are black men, and they see the ship coming, so they pull out wooden drums and start banging on drums, just like that, I'm not kidding, and it opens the force field, and I'm just like, wait, hold on. The Wakandans have to play drums to open a door, to open the force field? Come on, man. They have buttons. They know how to, they have machines. For what reason do they depict the most advanced country on earth as being like, I know, to open this, we'll bang drums? Look, I get it. Drums are used in ceremonies. We have drums too. But imagine if it was like a white dude, he saw someone coming and he pulled out a guitar and went like, you'd be like, what are they doing? That's like the weirdest thing ever. But they have them like banging drums to control this stuff. I'm like, oh man, it's just, There's a bunch of other stuff in the movie that I felt was really rushed. Riri Williams is in it. She's Ironheart. And it was just like, why is she in it? The reason why the Mayan people show up to Wakanda also makes no sense. The story is basically that Riri, they reveal this later on, but a scientist creates vibranium detection technology. The U.S. finds vibranium in the ocean, and the Talocanil, or whatever they're called, from Talocan, the Mayan people are like, oh no, we've been discovered. So they kill all these people. Then Namor goes to Wakanda and says, you need to bring us the scientists who invented this technology because it's your fault they know it exists, which is really, really dumb because it's not true and it made no sense. But whatever. Now, why is he called Namor? It's because his mom gives birth to him. He's a mutant. These people, the Mayan people, underwater, their skin looks normal. When they leave, they turn blue and they have to breathe water through gills on their mouth and neck or whatever. And when his mom's dying, she says, please, my son, bury me in the land of my home. She misses living on land, and they're sad that they have to live in the water now. And when he goes up, he finds that Spanish conquistadors were mercilessly beating and enslaving his people. Him being a mutant, like literal, like X-Men style mutant, like, that's what they say. He can fly, super strong, and he's 500 years old. At this point, he's a little kid. And so he ends up killing all the conquistadors. And then this has to be one of the stupidest bits of writing ever. There's like a priest, a Spanish priest, and he says something like, you are a child with no love. And then he's like, and that's when I decided to call myself Namor. For like no love, like no amor, like get it, Namor. And it's just like, oh, geez, they really do that. Sure. Whatever, man. I think they did Namor dirty, but I really thought the fight scenes were really, really cool. I know I'm supposed to read this article from the Washington Post, but I was just so excited to talk about it. And I'm seeing these people come out and say, like, the representation of the Central American cultures is just very, very, it's great. They're saying it's too woke. You know what? I agree. In their effort to create this like amalgam of Central American and black cultures, they created a movie about black people fighting Mexican people. I know it's not really Mexican, but Mayan, Central American types. And they used a bunch of ridiculous stereotypes to do it. It's just weird. It's just weird. So maybe it is too woke for some. I mean, that's not what they're saying. They're saying like the numbers are down and that it's creative and artistically bankrupt and it's too woke, too diverse or too woke for its own good. Sure. In the sense that they've gone so far left with the race stuff, they've actually created a show about two different races fighting each other and they hammed up the racial stereotypes. Okay. Look, if you get rid of that stuff, I thought the movie was enjoyable. But they have a lot of really missed opportunities. And I see this all the time with modern Marvel movies. And it's probably because Kevin Feige is spread too thin. But there's a scene where Shuri and Riri Williams are effectively held captive by the Talocanil, that's what they're called, I guess, the Mayan fish people. And they're trapped in a cave and they're trying to escape. And I was like, this is it. This is the perfect moment to introduce Ironheart. Here's what they should. Ironheart, for those not familiar, is like Iron Man, but it's a young black woman. And so what they should have done is that Kukulkan, he says this scientist can detect vibranium and it puts us at risk. She has to be killed. They capture her. Shuri demands to be taken to Kukulkan, Namor. When they're there, what should have happened is Namor should have said, you will construct for me this machine that can detect vibranium. I will use that to empower my people and stop anyone else from finding it. The point was that vibranium was either in Wakanda or underwater. It should have been that Kukulkan says, if we can find all the vibranium, we can reach it underwater because we are water people. We can stop anyone else from getting it, keep our people safe, and then use that power to conquer the world or something like that. He should have then had Riri Williams start building the machine. But like Iron Man, she ends up making a weapon to escape with. That would have been a very, very cool homage to the first Iron Man movie. And I would have been like, oh, I see what they did there. That's really cool. But what they really did was just Riri appears, already has an Iron Man suit for some reason, and flies around with it. And it's like, okay. And then they capture her. And then an assassin saves them or something. And I'm just like, okay, I guess. I thought it would have been cool if Riri was like, I'll build your machine, and then these people are watching. But what she's really building is like a repulsor cannon and arc reactor. And then that would have shown, like they could have then used that moment to explain that she is like Tony Stark, resourceful, smart, adaptive. That'd have been cool. They didn't do it. But whatever, that's just me. I'd have done it very differently. I'd also say that I would not include the racist stereotypes if it were me. But they went ahead and did that. So sure, I guess. If that's what you really want to do, go ahead and do it. But I love how they're saying that it's racist. They're saying, look at this one, the Mary Sue. Marvel trailer reactions raise the same issues of indigenous erasure as real-world political scandal. Okay, dude, they're never satisfied. But here's the point I was talking about. The scene where the Central American guy is rising from the water as he invades Wakanda. And it's not the first time, he does it several times. The first time he breaks in, they're like, how did he get in? And they're like, through the water. You mean this? And then M'Baka's like, this man swam. I might not have been M'Baka. Somebody's like, he swam hundreds of kilometers or meters through the water. And they're like, yes. It's like, oh, man. A super-powered Mexican guy who's able to breach the most powerful nation on the planet by swimming through the river. And it's just like, did they not stop and think about that? And then after that, it's like, how do we defeat him? We dry him off. Uh-huh. All right. Whatever, man. They're the woke ones, not me. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. Over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.